This is section 812. We're going to calculate the area of a sector. So the two things today, we're going to convert radians to degrees and degrees to radians and find the sector of a circular area. So the first thing we're going to talk about is converting between radians and degrees. Since we know that radians and degrees both measure rotation, we can actually convert between them. Yay! Now, here is the idea or premise behind it. If you're trying to convert degrees to radians, you multiply by pi over 180. If you're trying to convert from radians to degrees, you multiply by 180 over pi. Now, if you notice, they're both very similar, right? Pi over 180, 180 over pi. They're very, very similar. It's just flipped. The way to memorize is, what do you want canceling out, right? So if I want, let's say if I have 2 pi and I'm trying to convert it, well, I'm going to multiply by 180 over pi because the radians are going to cancel out. If I have 210 degrees, I'm going to multiply by pi over 180. Why? Because the unit degrees, those units are going to cancel out because anything on top and bottom are going to reduce. Well, guess what? Units reduce as well. So 135 degrees, convert to radians. So 135 degrees, I'm going to multiply by pi over 180 because I want the units to cancel out. And then from there, you combine it together, and you just got to reduce it. Now, usually, we want to reduce this by hand. You don't just want to enter this into your calculator, only because, generally speaking, when we do the conversion, what's going to end up happening is it's going to be usable, right? And so we just want to be very careful of that. So let's just say if I reduce a 5 in each of them. So I'm going to get 27 pi over, and then for the 180, so that's 36. I could still reduce that. So there's a 9 in both, and so 3 over 4. So I get 3 pi over 4. So this one, converting from radians to degrees. So I'm going to multiply now by 180 over pi. Why? Because the pi radians are going to cancel out. And so that's going to give me 180 degrees over 3. That's going to reduce into 60 degrees. We'll try one more. So this one, we multiply by pi over 180 because the degrees as a unit are going to cancel out. And now I just got to reduce that. So that's going to cancel out. So I'm going to get 33 pi over 18. And then there's a 3. So 11 and then 6. So now we're going to talk about finding the area of a sector. It's easy to overcomplicate it, but it's actually much simple than it is. We know the area of a circle. Pi r squared. All the area of a sector is how much. So instead of, like, if I have a circle and I'm trying to say, oh, that's my area, the area of a circle is saying, oh, we only want that much. Well, how do we get that much? Right? That's the big question. How do we get that much? Well, actually, all you need to do is just multiply by a ratio. And if we know that the entire circle, right? If we go around the entire circle, that's either 360 degrees or 2 pi. If we go all the way around it, we do how much over 360 or, over 2 pi. Like, depending if it's in radians or if it's in degrees. That's it. And you just multiply that by your area. So what do I mean by that? Let's just say if I wanted to find the area when my radius is 2 inches and the rotation is pi thirds. Okay, so how much pi thirds out of the normal 2 pi times pi r squared. My r is 2. And that's it. Like, from here, you would just simplify it, right? You could enter that in your calculator. Sometimes they want you to have exact. If it's exact, then you can't enter it in. But this is something that you would just calculate it, and you're going to get, the inches squared, so something inches squared. So like in here, that would cancel out times 4, so you get 4 pi over 6, which is 2 pi thirds. Same idea here, except now it's in degrees. So how much out of 360 times pi r squared? Enter that in your calculator. How much out of 360 times pi r squared? So what did we learn today? We talked about how to convert between radians and degrees and radians. And then we also calculated finding the area of a circle, or the sector of a circle. What is the way to visualize finding the area of a circle? Well, pi r squared. And then if we're trying to find all of it, right, if we think of it as rotation, well, that's 360 out of 360. So that's why it's multiplied by 1. But if we only wanted to find a smaller sliver of it, then we would just say how much out of 360. And then how do I convert from radians to degrees? So to convert from radians, since we know it's going to be radians, that means we'd multiply by 180 degrees over pi radians. And then the radian part we're going to cancel out. This does conclude our lesson. If you have any other questions, please leave them in the comments.